In this video, we're going to take a look at the geometry builder and the geometry connector. So we'll be in the horizontal geometry introduction file still, and we're down in the lower right. These two boxes right here. The geometry builder is underneath open roads modeling, geometry, horizontal, and it's underneath the complex geometry tools. So these last two tools in here, and they're new tools to us in ORD. So we're going to open up this geometry builder. We do have a geometry builder file that's saved out there for us to open. It's an XML file. So I'm going to go open that real quick, and that's what we have here. So basically you can create as much geometry in this file as you want and then save it off almost like a GPK for your information. And you can bring that geometry in and edit it and save it back and all of that good stuff. So that's what this first option here is the open file. So we're going to go ahead and open that file. And in project wise, under our data 2 folder, we should have a horizontal geometry introduction. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open that file. And we've got one stored in here already. Now this could be stored from an alignment that you had out in a different drawing, or it can be stored in this drawing with the geometry tools and then opened back up here and imported into here. So this is the open file which we just did. We've got a Route 7 in here that's got information in there. You can save a file, you can save it as another file, so you can have more than one XML per drawing. You can add new geometry. So right now this has the Route 7 in it, but we can add in other geometry inside of this XML. We can copy a selected one. So if we have Route 7 and we want to make another, we want to make a copy of it and make some edits to it without messing with the original, we can copy that. And we can delete any selected information over here on the left, or we can delete everything out of the XML. Okay, so to take a look at this one that was created already, we've got several things turned on and several things already filled in for us here. The one is the XY location up here at the top. That's the beginning point. So that would be this location here. And how that was created was it comes in 0, 0 by default. But we have a select begin point, which you can pick on that button and pick on the screen for a start point. And that's how this one here was created. Down below, you can key in information based on bearing or quadrant, azimuth, direction. Typically we'll do bearing here. Degrees, minutes, and seconds is our normal standard there. US survey feet is what we're typically using also, but there are other options in here to choose from if you need to. Some of the important things are the items that you have in here. So this first one is the tangent restriction. If that's turned on, when you create a line, a linear element, and you want that arc after that to be tangent to the incoming and the outgoing lines, you need to have this turned on. If you don't, you'll get a line out here and then you'll get an arc at whatever bearing, and then it'll have another line coming off of that, and they won't be tangent, which is typically not what we're looking for. We're looking for tangent elements. So that being turned on will allow you to get an arc similar to this one here. You have the ability to create simple elements, so they're just like microstation elements. You have the ability to create graphic elements out on the screen, so you can come out here and just freehand draw. And then you've got the create ruled civil elements, which is typically what we want to have turned on here. That way everything's ruled to each other, so it remembers the length, it remembers that it's got a particular radius and all that, and you can change it on the screen. The other options out here are modify an item, so you pick an item from the list and you can modify it, or modify actually an element out on the screen and pull it in. You can insert a line, insert an arc into the items below, insert a spiral or a vertex. All those things can be inserted into your geometry. And you can insert an element, different element. You can insert a new item in here, and it'll just be, I believe it's a line that comes in by default, and you can come in here and change what type of an element it is. You can move things up or down. So if you had placed all your lines and then you wanted to come in and place all your arcs later, you can do that and then move those up and down to the elements that they need to connect to. And then you can delete an item out of this list or delete everything out of this list. Okay. The other options that you have down here at the bottom, there's a little dialog here that tells you how things have been created. You can take a look at the begin point, you can close them, you can do a fixed point. Under lines, you can add in a line or no lines. And you can do a little map check on the geometry here. Okay, so that's your reports. You can run a little report on that geometry. And you can also see the area that it's created out of this if it were a closed element. The last thing you can do is place one. So if you had brought something in from here and you wanted to place it through the geometry, you can do that. As you can see right now, these, if I try to select these items out here, they're not really in the file. They're in the Geometry Builder Tool XML file. But they're just being displayed, kind of like a temporary display in the old Kogo. Okay, so if you really want it in your drawing, you can hit the place option. Now down here, if you just hit place right now, it's not going to have any feature definition, even though we have it turned on up here. So what we would have to do then is come in here, and we could use the active feature definition, and then it would use that. Or we can come in and change it to something we want, like a geometry scratch. Okay. So once we do that, we can hit this place option here, and it'll come out and place that element. As you can see, as I hover over it, complex element is Route 7. Okay, it is not a civil ruled feature. As you can see, it wasn't turned on. So when I select it, it's just elements out there. Okay, you can delete it. You can do all the normal stuff that we can do inside of ORD using this tool. So you can turn on civil ruled elements and place that, and now you've got civil ruled elements. But you can place it more than once. As you can see, I've got 2 elements there. Now it moved it up to Route 8. Okay, because you can't have 2 Route 7s in a file. So you can hit place a bunch of different times if you make changes, and it will just put it right over the top of the other ones. So something to be aware of there. If you want to create your own alignment using the Geometry Builder tool, you can do that. So that would be this option here, add new geometry. You can also see the save options have now lit up since I added the civil rules. You could save that now, and then I'll save it with those civil rules. If we create a new element, it's going to come down here. Right now it's called Geometry Scratch because that's what we have up here. I'm fine with that. You can change the name if you want to. You've got the XY and the beginning point. You could key in an XY if you knew what that was, or you can hit the little begin point option and you could snap to something out here. We're just going to come down here and place it. So that's our new begin point. What we're going to insert is going to be civil ruled. I also want to turn on the tangent restriction. But we can come down here in this very first one and we can place a bearing. Let's say that it's north 85 east. And I'm tabbing over. And we want it to be 1,000 foot. And I'll tab over, and you'll see out in the drawing it has a display of that. Now it's not actual geometry again until we place it. Okay, but that's placed that in there. Now let's say that I want to arc next. So what I'll do is come over here and insert a new item. And I'm going to change that line to an arc. Once you change that to an arc, it's going to give you more options in there. Be a left hand or a right hand. Which direction are we going to go? We're going to go up or are we going to go down? I'm going to change that to a right hand. We've got it set in there to be tangent, so this is grayed out for the bearing. Okay. So over here for a radius, I'm going to put in 200. And for an arc length, I'll put in 1,000. As you can see, that 1,000 was way too much, so I've got a 200 in here, but it's going 1,000 foot. So let's bring that back to 100. And you can see what it does. Okay, if that's still not long enough perhaps, maybe we can go 200, but you have the ability to change that inside of the geometry builder as you go. So let's say I like that, 200-foot radius, 200-foot long. The next thing after I hit enter on that, it's going to create another line. So that line is going to be tangent automatically, so you can't make any changes there. And our distance for that line, let's say that we're going to have 1200-foot line. So I'll do 1200, tab that in, and you can see it's going to make that next line. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit insert again, and after that line we've got another arc. This time it will be a left hand going up that direction, and we're going to have a 500-foot radius, so we tab that in, and we'll do another 200-foot length. So there you have that information in there, and you can see how it's drawing it out. And then again, we can't modify that last one because it's tangent, so all we can add in is a length, and we'll tab that in. So that has created that information in there, and right now it's just graphics. It's not even something you can select or choose out here on the screen. It's just being displayed. If I like the way that looks, I can hit the place option. You can move things up or down as well. That would move all of our lines around. So in here we're pretty good, but if you want to do all your lines first and then do your arcs, you could do that, and then you could select something and move it up in between the two lines that it needs to go to. Okay, so we're going to hit the place option, and that's going to go out here and place it in our drawing. So it's ruled, it's got the right feature definition and everything on that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and save this one. Okay, no wizard, so we're going to put it in project wise. You can save it. It says there's already one with that file name. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. So it's going to go out and replace that, and you can check it in. Okay, we'll close out of that, and these items will stay in your drawing. You can do anything you want to with these now. You can modify them. You can go out and change them. This does not go back to the XML to change that. So if I were to go back now into my complex geometry tools, look at the geometry scratch one, you'll see that it's still set at that south 60,000 feet. Okay, so you can see this is the original one. This is the one I just modified. So it doesn't go back to that. So you can make whatever changes you want after the fact. Okay, under the modify tools, when we're looking there before, there is this geometry builder edit. So if you like this tool and you want to edit any geometry that we've placed out there, you can do it. It doesn't have to be the ones that were created with the geometry builder. You can do it inside of here with any of the complex elements that we've created. Okay, and then you can make modifications and change whatever it will allow you to change in here. If it's grayed out, can't make the change. Okay, so I'll cancel out of that. The last tool then in here is the geometry connector. This tool you can use kind of the similar to the geometry builder. For me, I might just use the simple arc tool in here that we have to create an arc in between elements, but they do have this new geometry connector here. It takes a little more thought to get it going, but it will create a alignment and connect these two elements together. Okay, so it's almost like a couple of tools in one, where you can put in your arc in here, and then you can go back and complex them together. This kind of does it all in one. And the way that this works is the geometry connector tool, you can go out and select your first element and your second element. So I'll come out here to select element in the upper right, and we're going to pick this red line that we have over here on the left side, and it's got a direction. What direction do you want this to travel? So you pick it on the left end, it'll point it to the right, and you can accept that. Okay, your end element, we can select the element here as well. Again, we can pick it. If we pick this end, it's going to try and draw it the wrong direction. So we want to go to this end and left click, and now we've got a line in here and a line in there, and they're going the correct direction. Okay. Now in between those, we want to place an arc, and all I did was just come in here and left click inside of this drop down. I'm going to choose an arc. Our length, we're going to go ahead and make that 200, and our radius, I'm going to say, is 500. Okay. Now down here at the bottom, you can see that we've got 500 in here and 200, and that's not going to make a connection. When it makes a connection, I'm going to get rid of, since I hit enter, it tried to make another line. I'm going to get rid of that line. But you can see there's a compute option down here. So I put in the arc. It's got a left hand, which is trying to create there, 200 and 500. If I hit the compute option, it's going to go ahead and try to compute something in here and create that. So I hit compute, and it has gone in and created this information based on what I have typed in here. So if I like the way that looks, I can have replace on here if I want for each one of those, and it'll replace those items out there completely. I'm just going to hit apply here, and it's going to go out and create a single element in my design file for me. Okay. Again, when I click on that, you can kind of see what happens here. I don't have any heads-up display or anything like that. So if I undo that, which undo is an option here, I can come in here and turn on this civil rule element. It'll tell me that, it could change the values. Fine with that. Now we can compute it again. It'll create that. I'll hit apply. And now when I pick on it, I'll have those options available. You can see what it did with the compute. It changed my radius in here by a huge number. Okay, it used to be 200. If I want to have it go ahead and compute that information, it'll do that for me. Okay. So anything else that I have in here? Looks like we're good there and good there. And so that's what it's done. It's placed in a tangent arc in between those. Now, if I were to try to get this to be 200, I could do that. But what it's doing is it's modifying either the radius or the length. Okay, so if I put 500 in there like we had before, okay, we can still do that. We can make that change. But when you hit this compute option, it's going to go ahead and give you what it thinks should be a complete item in there. Okay, we can apply that. Every time you hit apply, it's going to create another new item in there. Okay, but you can go modify those and make those changes. All right. You have the options here also under the free length. If you need to change the length of this last one, usually it'll go ahead and automatically check that so that it can modify the length of that second item. So it's going to go from the location here, this direction, and allow that to be free, that direction. So it's going to start here and go that direction. Okay, you can also do spirals, regular arcs, you can do lines, all the things you can do with the geometry builder.